Welcome to Fridays with Foster. I'm your host, Foster. Oh, and I actually didn't put my my headset in, so hopefully the sound won't be too off on this. But welcome to my office. Obviously, there are some things going on here, a little bit different being in the office today. We got glasses now. I got LASIK about 12 years ago, and it's just starting to go a little bit in this eye, but at the same time, it's not bad enough to merit resurgery. So that's new for 2021. What else? Coffee today is a little bit different, but really not. So I've got the same blend that I'm working with, and that's the French press of the Holiday blend from Pete's. I'll explain a little bit more about what's going to be changing with that. But in the background, you can see I actually have set up. I brought my grinder in, and I got a electric kettle, and now I can have French press in the office. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it definitely opens some things up. So back in the office, physically distancing. I don't like, personally, I don't like the idea of socially distanced because we're not socially distanced. If I were socially distanced, I wouldn't be talking to you guys right now. And we wouldn't have any kind of a connection with people via Zoom or Hangouts or anything like that. So I prefer to say, physically distanced. So we're physically distanced here in the office, and I have a mask in the whole 9 yards. And something that's even more challenging for me is I started going back to my gym, and we're working out high intensity training workouts with a mask on. So that is definitely a challenge. I think every time I've gone in, I'm up to 178 beats per minute at certain times within my workout, which for the time being, it's good for my heart until the doctor tells me any different. So we made it through the first week in 2021, and there are, I think, a lot of things that when we look at them within. Oh, sorry. Let me jump back real quick to the coffee. So what I actually did, and I'm really excited about this and looking forward to this. I set up a Pete's subscription for the time being. I still have a lot of other coffees to try, and I'm definitely looking forward to suggestions that you all may have as far as coffees you'd like me to try. If you want to send them to me, give me an address, or I'll give you my address. You can send them to me, or if you just want me to go out, I have no problem ordering them myself. Obviously, I just need to know what it is. So what I did do is I signed up for a Pete's small batch curated subscription. So this is on a monthly basis. It's called a club for connoisseurs. And so they collect very small batch roasted coffees that from like 1% of all coffee growers. Personally, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I'm worth it. I mean, I am worth it, but I don't know that my taste buds are worth it. And there are actually 3 different levels of the Pete's Club that I can sign up for. So I'm trying that out. The first one is well, we'll talk about it next week, so I won't ruin that for you. But I'm going to be getting it and having it here in whole bean roast with a burr grinder and the whole 9 yards. So if you're excited to continue the journey with me, with coffee, there you have it. Now today I'm having Pete's Holiday Blend, but I'm actually not having it black. I have some sugar in it and some milk. So for those of you keeping score, whatever. I really hope that my coffee adventures aren't the reason that most of you are viewing this. So let's talk about 2021 and what we're doing. Last time we spoke, we talked about the idea of consistency over intensity and having really good ideas about what we want to do, but properly managing the decisions that we make. So a week later, a couple weeks later, a couple months later, however we want to look at it, we find ourselves putting time and energy behind certain actions and activities, and maybe we're not seeing what we would like to see. I've got a case in point for me. One of my goals that was kind of driven by my trainer at the gym, my coach, said was to drink 100 ounces of water a day. Well, before that, I drink a ton of sparkling water. So we actually have a soda stream at home to try and cut down. It's actually on the fritz right now, so I have bottles of sparkling water. But So I do drink that, but it's not nearly in the amounts of 100 ounces. So what I actually didn't do whenever I set that goal, number one, it wasn't realistic, right? So we make SMART goals: specific, measurable, relevant, attainable, which this wasn't, and time sensitive. So what we look at when we set our goals and we're focusing on those goals is we've got to look at how we're managing the actions. And so what I did that was necessary, obviously, the title of today is necessary but not sufficient. I did something that was necessary. So I signed up. I helped holding myself accountable by checking in with a group, and that's necessary. But there's a sufficiency side that I don't have. So I use an app. It's called the one I use is called Lose It, and it's for tracking food and water intake. But anyway, the important thing is that I didn't look at any kind of a ramp up. So I pretty much went from, I don't know, 40 ounces per day or something to an expectation of 100. Now, day one, you guys want to put money on the line on whether or not I actually achieved day one? Yes, I actually, day one, I had 135 ounces of water, which is just typical for this sprinter, right? I'm the microwave that's in a race with a crock pot. It just doesn't work very well like that. So of course, in the subsequent 3 or 4 days, it did not happen, and so now I'm back on par. But the important thing is looking at certain elements of what I did that were necessary, right? There's the commitment. There's even if I chose the wrong goal, choosing a goal is necessary. However, it was not sufficient to achieve my goal. So the sufficiency part is usually a missing step. And a lot of people look at it as an either or, right? And they say, well, I'm doing this. Are you saying that I'm not supposed to implement this strategy? I have to implement this strategy to get it done. I said, we're not saying to not do that, but doing that alone is not enough. So let's take some examples. First, a great Chinese proverb says, if we don't change our direction, we are likely to end up where we are headed. So even if we're not completely off course right now in our goals in 2021 or whatever we're trying to do for ourselves and moving forward, we can still shift our sails and, I guess the 2020 word, pivot, where we are heading, so we can course correct, which is really what all of this is about. I think that one thing that my trainer, again, actually said last year is that it's not people that are going to work out harder or work out more that are going to make it through like the pandemic, those of us who go to gyms and things of that nature. It's not the strongest. It's the most adaptable. And I think that's the same situation in 2021. Those who are willing and able to adapt to the changing marketplace, business place, life situations in 2021 are the ones who are going to be successful, continue to be successful, and continue to grow. So let's talk about some necessary but not sufficient items. So breathing and a heartbeat. That's wonderful. Involuntary, yes, but they are necessary to be alive. They are not sufficient to live a full life. So simply because we have that, it's a very basic example of what we're talking about. It's necessary to be alive, not sufficient to actually live a full life. So something we talked about last week, making a decision. Making a decision to do something is necessary, whatever that decision might be, right? At least we're getting out there and we're saying, this is something I want to change, right? I want to drink more water. I want to work out more. So right now I'm meditating every day, which is something that I think I have my record is like 100 and I think it's actually like 170 days if I think correctly. Anyway, it's something crazy. And of course for me it was a competition, so of course that's why I pushed into it. But but I lapsed from that and didn't stay consistent with that. So I had to make a decision to get back into that as well. So let's talk about some other aspects of business that when we look at our lives and we look at our businesses, they are necessary but not sufficient to achieve our goals. So having a plan. Well, I mentioned my favorite quote in the world. Well, not favorite quote in the world. One of my favorite quotes specifically about planning is that a plan without action is a daydream and action without a plan is a nightmare. So you can have a plan, and that's great. And I've talked about this before in the planning, in different planning talks that we've had. We have to have action. A plan itself is necessary but not sufficient for success. Motivation. The founder of our company, Action Coach, often says that when we ask himself the question, what's more important, motivation or education? And he said, well, it's education. So why is it education? Because don't you have to get out there and do things? He said, well, if I motivate somebody who's stupid, they're just going to do dumb things faster. So education is more important. Motivation is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Okay, we have to educate ourselves. Goals, right? Goals are great. So having a goal, like the examples that I've given before, that is wonderful for actually moving forward and making a shift and a change in our life. Now, what is not sufficient or what is missing from that is the reason behind the goal. So if I have a net profit goal, if I have a team expansion goal, if I want to be able to step away from my business for 2 weeks and not check my email and worry about the business as a goal, those are wonderful goals. Without that goal, we won't really have a direction. So 100% necessary. But it's lacking something, especially in the long run when you're looking at goals that are more than, a couple of months out or weeks out, if you will. The reasoning behind the goal, or Simon Sinek talks about that why, right? The why behind the goal, that is what is necessary for you to be able to explain to your team, to roll out to clients, to get people bought into your process and your system, not just what the goal is. Go do that, achieve that. Why? Because it's a goal. Well, that doesn't really give a good reason. It doesn't give a lot of buy-in to that. So we want to be able to focus on that whenever we're actually setting goals. Financials, that's a great one. First of all, a lot of people, or believe it or not, they still operate from a checkbook financial mentality. And they obviously, if you can't figure that one out, they look at how much money they have and base that on their success, but they're not looking at whether or not it's accrual basis or a cash basis. There's no cash flow budget. They're not looking at a percentage of income to look at their cost of goods sold or how efficiently they're working. And it's not a great basis of financial planning and decision making. But the other side of that is that they may have their financials. They may have a P&L, which I've shared before. A P&L is wonderful because you're getting information about your business. The problem with just a P&L is that it's like looking in the rearview mirror when you drive. Rearview mirror is very small and it only shows you where you've been, not where you're going. A cash flow budget or a P&L budget versus actual as you carry forward is still a little bit in the back, but the budget part of it is actually looking through the windshield. So having a certain financial report or financial reporting is necessary for financial success in your business. But it is not sufficient to make the changes that you need to make. Changes in pricing, changes in inventory, changes in vendors, changes in commission structures. You can't really do any of that if you're only looking in the past. Now, you do have to look at the past as well, but you've got to create financial performance for changes that you want to enact financially in the future for the business. So pretty important. So, one thing that we're going to be doing, so they say it takes 21 days to build a plan or to build a habit, right? Well, on January 22nd, I'm actually going to be running a planning session. And that planning session is about, I'm not going to say it's about being honest and picking yourself up for the resolutions that you maybe balked on for your business. But I just thought it was interesting because the one challenge that I have right now is a 21-day habit challenge. So I think there should be a post there on the side. You can go ahead and link into this. It's a Zoom session. And the idea is we're just going to go through and look at where we're at. And then we're going to just take a couple hours. I think right now we have 2 or 3 hours sanctioned on the side so we can create a plan for at least the quarter. So really simple, concrete, 3 goals, how to move forward. We like to keep it nice and small. A lot of people that I work with, they have these big lists. They're usually task lists. They're not necessarily goal focused, although they'll lead them towards a goal. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get closer to the event, and the difference between actually creating a goal that has strategies and objectives underneath that to support the goal, and having the strategies and tactics themselves simply taking the place of a goal. It's not the same thing, right? Goals are measurable. They can have a lot of strategies attached to them. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just thought it was interesting that the 22nd's a Friday. We usually do any of our planning events and things like that on Fridays. And so, yeah, so check out the link. And if you have any questions, let me know. Or if you want an invite emailed to you or something, let me know. I love doing those kinds of events because they really put me in a position to help as many people as possible. And that's really what I want to do. So here's the kicker. Once we figure this stuff out, right, the things that were necessary and sufficient and things like that, is that in a lot of cases, what was sufficient for our goals and everything that we're aspiring towards in our businesses yesterday is not sufficient today, right? We think we're there, and then all of a sudden the peak shifts, or we get to that peak and see there's another one. There's a couple reasons for that, and it's not to dissuade people from creating goals and motivating themselves, but what happens is that as we achieve goals, we grow as individuals. There's a great saying that the same man doesn't ever stand in the same stream twice, because the man is different and the stream is different. So what was acceptable for me and necessary for me at one point, adding that to what is sufficient to achieve a goal, that what is sufficient is now simply necessary to move on. So I have to be willing to take an assessment of where I am, talk to friends, talk to advisors. That's one of the reasons I love being a coach, is because people bring these things to me. Not that I don't always have the answers, and that's not why people work with me. I just hopefully ask the right questions, right? And when you get some input about where you're honestly at, then you can adjust what you need to adjust as far as your strategies are concerned, and create new levels of sufficiencies in order to achieve your goals. Marshall Goldsmith's got a great book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that's kind of that same concept of not resting on yesterday's laurels, right? And focusing on how I need to continue to shift and to change. Now, it doesn't always have to be a grind. That's the idea of consistency. Consistency is not 120% every single day all the time. And guys like Gary Vaynerchuk and other guys like that might disagree with me about the all-day, everyday grind, but consistency is more important, okay? Last thing, I wasn't sure if I was going to be doing this in the beginning or not, but some book recommendations. A book that I picked up that I absolutely love is Extreme Ownership. Anybody who doesn't know who Jocko Willink is, this was written by he and Leif Babin, and it's their business principles that are drawn out from U.S. Navy SEALs. And it's really interesting. It's an easy read. Obviously, liking, guns and, fighting and being a boy. It's an easy read to get into, but they break it down into 3 sections. So the first section of each principle is the actually active war scenario that they went through. The second part is the principle that they draw from that. And then the third part is the practical business application. So I really like it. Like I said, I've given a lot of that given it to clients and suggested it to a lot of people. And really, if you're into being a victim, it's not for you. So without further ado, we're at about the 20-minute mark, which I like to keep it lower than that if I can, because I respect people who have an attention span like my own. So I hope you have a wonderful week. Go ahead and click on the link and register for the event on the 22nd. Would love to see you there and help you any way I can. Coffee suggestions, topic suggestions. If you're a business owner and you've got some great ideas, I'd love to hear them. And I think eventually, once I figure out how to get the technology matched up with everything else, we'll be doing interviews on here, because that's much more important to me than simply having me talk. Grateful that you are getting something from that if you're watching this, but I really want to make it a bit more interactive, both with you out there as well as with other business owners within here. So I hope you have a wonderful day. And without further ado, enjoy your Friday.